All right. Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday to you. Welcome to the live stream. I missed last week because I was at JordanCon. So I know I saw a few of you at JordanCon, and that was a real treat. And if you've never gone, consider it. It's quite a party. Anyway, today we're talking about, well, this. When is a book too preachy? And what does preachiness even mean, right? So it's a topic that I was thinking of because of there are a couple books that we have read in the past on the podcast, and then there is an episode that's coming up that I'll talk a little bit more about. But I thought it would be a kind of an interesting topic. I don't want anybody to get too either judgy or judged, except for me. I'm allowed, but anyway, that is the plan for today. I'm also going to let you in on the rankings on the GoFundMe, i.e., the vote for what we read next, and yeah, we'll go from there. Let me just post that we are going live. Okay, so I'm trying to think of where to start. Do I want to give people a few minutes to trickle in, or do we want to go ahead and start so that those who come in after the fact don't have to wait too long, if they're watching the stream later? Hello, Jingles. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and just dive in. Okay, when is a book too preachy? Let me set the table a little bit. We've read a few books, a fair few, that I know some would consider preachy, depending on where your line is, right? This is going to be a very subjective question. When is a book too preachy? It's a very subjective question, but I think that there are ways that we can address this. If not objectively, then at least we can throw out some criteria that then we can each use to draw our own line. This is useful obviously for writers. If you're writing something you don't want to be too preachy, but if you're reading something as well, it's good to know where the author is coming from, what they're trying to accomplish, and if they are writing a preachy novel, then you can kind of meet them at their expectation, right? And then have an argument with them. I mean, in your own head, but hey, that's how books work, right? So when is a book too preachy? Well, what does preachy even mean? All right. I hope this isn't too small. Let me know if this is too small. I don't think I can blow this up anymore. I mean, I can blow it up so that, yeah, there we go. So what does it mean? I found this on DIYMFA.com, and I thought it was a pretty good explanation of what preachiness is. It's when an author's delivery of a theme is too heavy-handed. The theme is presented in a forceful or pretentious manner, as if you're using the plot or characters or so on as your proverbial soapbox. I think that's a pretty good definition, obviously. That's why I put it on here. And of course, it reminded me of my all-time favorite passage, my all-time favorite paragraph about prose. In the best prose, whether narrative or argument, either way. We are so led on as we read that we do not stop to applaud the writer, nor do we stop to question him. And the idea here being that when you're being preached to, so to speak, you are being stopped. You're either stopping to applaud the writer or to question him. And that goes for a lot of other things as well. We can talk about purple prose, or we can talk about whatever, this or that or the other. But it definitely goes for preachiness. This idea that you're letting the theme take over your story. So anyway, today I guess I'll give you a little more background. Today I recorded an episode with Nadia Udin, who was just a delightful author shelf guest. She was really great. And we talked about Ursula Le Guin's Left Hand of Darkness. And I was thinking about that because it's definitely a message book, right? If you've ever read it, and you should, it's really interesting. If you've ever read it, then you know that she has something that she wants to say. And I wondered. I wasn't reading the book going, oh, this is too preachy, but it did bring up that concept for me. It made me wonder about it. Okay, so what is the line? When does it get too preachy? What's, not preachy, whatever. So Left Hand of Darkness, similar to, we did another of hers, The Dispossessed. Very similar setup in terms of how she's using her book and what she's trying to say with it. And so I I don't bring this up because I was reading The Left Hand of Darkness going, it's too preachy, but because it raised the question for me. It is a preachy book. The question is whether it's too preachy. Okay, so, oh, hey, Linnea made it. Hi, Linnea. Okay, so let's go on a little bit. Okay, so when do we object to preachiness? This is going kind of beyond the definition. I'm hoping that definition is one that we can kind of agree on. But when does it become too much for us? When do we object to that? Well, there are a couple of possibilities. One, it's taking us out of the story. Plain and simple. We'll dive into this a little bit more. But if we're being taken out of the story by the themes, by the message, then we're likely to object to that, right? The other one is when we don't agree with the message. Again, I will have more to say on that in a bit. Let's see. Ever read John Ringo? I have not read John Ringo. I've never even heard of John Ringo. I've heard of Ringo, and I know a lot of Johns, but no, I haven't. Sorry. Okay, so with that first one, we're taken out of the story. What is it that takes us out of the story? I identified a few things, but I'd be interested if you can think of others. So hit the comments, hit the chat over there. Let me know if you think of any to add to this list. But the first one is long stretches of philosophy. And a lot of the most celebrated classic sci-fi and fantasy writers, especially sci-fi writers, are guilty of this. But I know there are some fantasy ones as well. But Le Guin is definitely guilty of this. I don't think this by itself means that something is too preachy, but it's something to watch out for, right? You're in the middle of the story. Okay, so the character arrives at this place. They meet this other character, and they're introducing themselves. They're getting to know each other, whatever. And in the middle of the events of the book, they just go into not a diatribe, but go into a long discourse about some kind of philosophy, usually. That's usually what it is, right? So that would be one way. The second would be the message takes precedence over character agency. Now, this is one that shows up where a character does something that doesn't actually fit that character. Okay, so the author comes up with who this character is. They tell you who the character is. They even show you who the character is through their actions, through their words and whatnot. And then sometime during the story, that character says something or does something that's really discordant with that character. And you know that it's because the author wanted to get this theme or this idea into the book. And in so doing, they used the character to shoehorn in their own ideology, for lack of a better word. It's maybe, yeah, I don't know. Is that less common? It's probably about as common as number one, but either way, they're both annoying. The third would be one-sided arguments. If you've, oh wait, sorry, this is back on the John Ringo thing. He's got a character that's a villain that is so clearly Hillary Clinton in his book, The Last Censure. That's hilarious. Yeah, just like call a bunch of people deplorables or something like that. Like that would be funny. And yes, that would rip me right out of the story. That would be too much. Anyway, okay, back here. One-sided arguments. If a book is preachy, if it's a screed, a diatribe, then it's making a certain point and it's telling you this is how you should think about this thing. If, in a certain context, I'm fine with that. I guess if we're using the word preachy, you can talk about religious texts where some theologian or some preacher is saying, here's what you should think about this. that's fine. I can agree or disagree, but like, that's okay. If you're telling me a story, especially, a modern novel, it's going to be a bigger red flag for me, right? A one-sided argument. You're not presenting any alternate point of view. You're just saying, here's how it is, and here's how you should think about it. So there's another one. Lastly, the lack of a plot or a stalled one. And this kind of goes along with number one, the long stretches of philosophy, where you're moving through a plot and then you stop to deliver a chapter of philosophy. This would be, let's see. So Le Guin is guilty of this, if guilty is the right word. She does this. But also, like, we did G.K. Chesterton. We did, oh gosh, what was that Chesterton book called? The Man Who Was Thursday. It's a pretty short book already, but he does take some time, especially toward the beginning of the book, to where the characters are, they're going somewhere or whatever, and then they just stop and they just talk for a chapter or two about the nature of this, that, or the other. And so, a lot of authors do this. And so my point with these is that none of them by themselves are something that is going to be too much of a problem to overcome. I say it kind of takes you out of the story. But it's kind of the preponderance of what direction you're going with these things, right? So do you present a lot of one-sided arguments and you take a lot of time out of your story to do it? Your book is preachy, right? Something like that. So, let's see. I'm late to the party, but if it wasn't mentioned, number 2 reminds me of the Brent Weeks of it all. Let's see. Number 2, message takes precedence over character agency. So yeah, that's an interesting one, and I think that's a fair criticism. I'm not going to get into specifics, so I'm not going to spoil anybody's reads. But if you read the Lightbringer series, we get to book 5, and there are some actions made that some people thought, yeah, this doesn't fit with the characters. This doesn't fit with the world, whatever. It's, Brent had something he wanted to say and he kind of used his characters to say it. I think that's a fair criticism. Other people read it and they were fine with it. Like I said, all of these things are very subjective. And so your line is going to be different for each of these, right? So I think that's fair. For some reason, this didn't start on time for me. Well, I'm glad you're here because I know you're going to have some stuff to say when I get to the last slide. So, okay. So those are the kind of things that take you out of the story. This is, it's not entirely on the author. Like I was saying with the Brent Weeks stuff, I think it's a fair criticism, but it's also fair to look at that and say, no, actually that did work for me. It did fit with my conception of the characters or the world or whatever. So it's still subjective, but I'd say the weight, the preponderance of the responsibility here lies with the author for this particular slide. But if we go to the next one, I don't like the themes here. This book is too preachy. This is, if we go back to, when we don't agree with the message. This can be tough. It's tough to come across something that troubles you, that disturbs your worldview, or that kind of attacks your worldview, perhaps. And so I don't like the themes here. This book is too preachy. This lies with the reader. The responsibility here lies with the reader. And again, it's not that there's no responsibility here on the side of the author, but the greater weight lies with the reader. I think that's fair. So what do you do? If I don't like the themes here, this book is too preachy, grow up and get over it. Okay? Just, yeah. All right. So that's me being judgy. But what I really mean is, think about it. Like, why is it that this bothers you? Why don't you like the themes here? Why is it that you disagree with the author? Come up with a better idea, a better argument. Have a discussion with the author, even if it's only in your own head. You don't, believe it or not, says the guy live streaming on YouTube, you don't have to go online and like hash everything out. It can be great. It can be very helpful. Obviously, again, says the guy who runs a book club podcast. But you don't have to do that. It can just be in your own head. Why is this bothering me so much? So there's a good example of this would be when we did Heinlein like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something like that. We did Heinlein a while ago. We did Starship Troopers. And I want to say it was back around episode 50 or so, something like that. And we enjoyed Starship Troopers, but we definitely noticed like, hey, he's what is this? The long stretches of philosophy where he would take a break, or number 4, he would take a break from his plot to have some character just go on a rant about this or that philosophy or ideology. So that's okay. So Heinlein can get pretty darn preachy, right? In that way. And then a few years later, actually pretty recently, I did the Dispossessed, Ursula Le Guin's Dispossessed with Mary Robinette Kowal. Another great episode. I really enjoyed that. But when I compared the two of them, this is what I was talking about, is that they both have a tendency to get kind of preachy in their novels by the definition we've been talking about here. And to me, it's like, okay, that's fine. This is a characteristic of their books, and you love it or hate it or whatever. But there were those who, like, I got a couple emails, or no, whatever. I got DMs, I got emails, I got whatever, or people just, hopping on Discord and saying, no, this book isn't preachy. And it's like, yeah, it is. You might just, they got upset when I was comparing it with Heinlein because they both do the same kinds of things, just in a different ideological direction. And, people get upset that I'm comparing the two of them. But all I'm comparing is that they both get kind of preachy in their novels. What do they get preachy about? You might like it, you might hate it, right? And so I think that's it's something to watch out for in ourselves as readers. Like I said, the last slide is about what the author's responsibility is, not to do these sorts of things, but our responsibility is to kind of recognize what's going on and either accept or reject it on our own criteria, right? So, Kip never has stuff to say. That's funny. Oh no. Okay. So he's running through I didn't know you could do that on a live stream. Okay. That's cool. I hope you catch up. That's pretty cool. If only someone would make a list of episodes for you. I know. I just don't have it. I don't have it pulled up. So I don't remember exactly what number it was. Anyway. So what was I saying? It's a trap that we can fall into where if something disturbs your worldview, then it's preachy. When in reality, stuff that you like can be very preachy. So I a great example of this, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but oh well, that's fine. The well-deserved reputation of Christian cinema and Christian music is that it kind of, if we go back, like it lets the message take precedence over like the quality of the music or whatever. It's the theme takes over for like decent lyrics or whatever. So that's why there is that there's that stereotype of it's Christian cinema. Which makes it sound like I'm saying Kirsten Sinema, the senator, whatever. But it's a lot of people, even a lot of Christians, find it really annoying because it's preachy in this way, and it's kind of letting the themes overtake the vehicle, so to speak. So anyway, but you can do that with anything as well, anything else as well. So it's this is what 1,000% correct, 100% correct. And you can flip that around. And I'm making fun of Christian music because it's eminently make funable, but you can flip that around and do that with other opposing or negating ideologies as well. So I don't mean to pick on the Christians, says the guy who is something of a Christian apologetic. So there you go. All right, so where are we at? Oh yeah, now it's Kip's turn. I hope Kip, you got to hurry up. You got to bump that up to like 3x because you're up, Slugger. Your favorite examples, either way, something that, and what I mean by either way, I don't mean like one ideology or the other. What I mean is examples of stuff that is either just over the line into too preachy, or something that gets up to that line but doesn't make you say that it's too much. And so I think a lot of people would probably put Heinlein and Le Guin in that category. Like, yeah, they can get, I think I would put myself in that category. They get pretty preachy, but I don't know if it's enough to overtake how good their characters are, how good their stories are, how good their prose is. Like there is enough there that's outweighing the preachiness that I'm not sure it gets over that line, but nice. But it's skirting that line. So Kip, I know Alex, sorry, here I have to call you Alex and it throws me off. You mentioned Orson Scott Card. Now that would be a great one of kind of gauging, okay, why do I think Orson Scott Card is preachy? Because obviously he has his ideology that he's coming at things from. And if that's as far as you go, you say, I don't like what he has to say, so he's preachy. That isn't good enough for me. But if you can say, like, what were you saying? Not Speaker for the Dead, the Children of the Mind. You get to Children of the Mind and you're like, okay, all right, Orson, calm down. Like, just tell me a story. Don't write me a dissertation, right? Something like that. Let's see. Carl Sagan's Contact is an excellent book that's half atheist theory. Yeah, I've never actually finished the book. I remember starting it when I was a teenager, and I never finished it. And that might be partly why. I wonder, I should go back and try it again. I wonder if I just got, kind of like fell asleep from something like that. Let's see. Nothing you could say could spark more discussion than a certain take on Last Argument of Kings. Yeah. Again, I don't mean to beat up on Christian music too much, so I'll leave that there. But Last Argument of Kings would be a good one. And really, we have to take that whole trilogy because the First Law trilogy is one book. It's one very, 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 very long book. And so you take the First Law trilogy, and I don't think that it is too preachy. I disagree with a lot of what I think he's saying, but that's the thing, is I think he's saying X, Y, or Z. I think he is trying to transmit this message. But with Abercrombie, at least in that trilogy, I never felt like he was shoveling a certain worldview down my throat. He was offering things up, but he wasn't saying this is the way that you must feel. And so while there are, obviously, as you guys know, I did not care much for those books. Definitely lots that I did like about it and things that do recommend them, but they weren't for me. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that the books are preachy. So let's see. All of Ayn Rand's books are pretty preachy. Ain't that the truth? And isn't it interesting I've only read a little bit of Ayn Rand. I can only take so much, if I'm being honest. I have a hard time because of this. But there are times when Ayn Rand is better and worse at storytelling, basically dependent on how preachy she gets. How much does she let her themes take over her books? Does that make sense? And so it's been so long, I'm not even going to try to get into specifics. But anyway, Ayn Rand is an interesting one. And she's also, she's another one where you can really, really dislike what she has to say and yet recognize that she said it pretty well. She was a decent writer in a lot of ways. I mean, believe me, quibbles. But like, there's a reason that people still read Ayn Rand, and partly it's her philosophy, but partly it's because, she had some good stories to tell. So, or interesting stories at least. Let's see. Mentioning and then skipping right over Terry Goodkind. You know, I've got actually on the back shelf here. I wonder if you can see it. Nah, I think it's out of the shot. But on the back shelf here, I have a copy of Wizard's First Rule, and I bought it thinking that we were going to do it for the podcast. I was like, oh, you know what? Like this, it's classic. It's been around a long time. We should probably know these books at least a little bit. So I bought Wizard's First Rule, brought it home, and then the next day was the giant Facebook controversy with his illustrator, if you guys recall that. It was so egregious. I didn't really know anything about him before that. I didn't know anything about the books. I didn't know anything about him. And then I saw that, and I was like, yeah, let's hold off. And we've been holding off for the last 6 years or so. So, let's see. What about Anthem versus Atlas Shrugged? Don't find a theme preachy. And I wonder if that's an ideological thing, because they are very, very preachy. But like I said, everybody's line is different, right? So she told a compelling enough story. I would say, especially in Atlas Shrugged, she told a compelling enough story that it's like, okay, well, this helps the medicine go down, or however you want to put it. Anthem is a lot. It's just a lot. But anyway, yeah, okay, yeah, we don't need to get into that. Oh, interesting. There you go. Anthem works for me. Doesn't get too preachy, but the message is clear. Well, there you go. Yeah, I kind of felt that. To me, they're both very heavy-handed. But anyway, there you go. I don't find Anthem preachy. Anthem, I don't. Never mind. One day, I don't know. Should we do the books on the podcast and I can tear Ayn Rand apart? It's been done too much. I don't know if I have anything to add, honestly. Okay. Hey, it's 7 o'clock somewhere, right? Okay, so there you go. I'm really interested in more of your takes on this subject. So let me know what you got, what your opinions on this are, other examples. But in the meantime, let me pull up the GoFundMe page. So, just so you guys know, and I know several of you on here have already helped out with the GoFundMe, but let's pull this up. In fact, let's put me down there. Perfect. So this is amazing. Okay, this is for our legendary meetup next year. My man bun won't be quite as prominent, but I'll probably have a little one. We've already raised $518 out of $1,000, so that's fabulous. That's basically, if we can get to $1,000, that'll pay for either the venue or the catering, one of the two. And we're getting really good numbers coming in. So I almost said really close. I don't know if it's like super close, but yeah, we still have a ways to go. I am going to extend this because I got sick earlier this month, and then I went to JordanCon. My wife traveled, then I traveled, and then my wife is going to travel again this weekend. It's just been a really hectic and chaotic month, so I haven't been able to do as much promotion of this as I wanted to. So I'm going to extend this a little bit and do a little more promotion. So basically the big question now is, where are the votes? And here are the standings. I hope this isn't too small. Yep. There we go. All right. So right now, as you can see, 160 votes for Redwall. That is in the lead. So right now, it's looking like, I told you guys we would read, 2 or 3 of these. And so a Game of Thrones and Off Armageddon Reef, which I've never heard of, but somebody put 10 votes in for that. Those ones are far enough back that I don't feel compelled, like we have to read them. Redwall and A Wrinkle in Time, I definitely feel like, yes, those, as the standings are now, we are going to get to these. Redwall and A Wrinkle in Time. When it comes to Dragonflight, that one is, it'll be next up on the list, but one of those, we'll see when we can get to it. Anyway, so if you haven't donated yet, and like I said, I know several of you already have, so consider yourselves excused from this, but But if you haven't donated yet and you want to throw some votes in for what we read next, then just pop into the link. It's in the description below. Pop into that link there, and you hit that donate button. And when you hit the donate button, then after you have donated, then it will give you a comment box. And I think I set it in here somewhere. Basically, oh yeah, you'll be given a chance to comment. Put your vote into that comment. And that's, in fact, I know that there are some votes, not a ton, but I know that there are some votes that haven't been counted yet because I haven't gotten a hold of the people who donated without commenting. So I'll be reaching out to them to see if I can figure out what their votes are for. If you are one of those people, then shoot me an email or hop on Discord, send me a DM, however you want to do it. So anyway, there you go. 160 votes for Redwall so far. I think the plan there will be to do like 3 Redwall books, right? That seems like a good amount. It's basically, if you've read 3 Redwall books, you've read all of the Redwall books. And so, and when we talk about it on the show, I'm sure I'll talk about this, but with something like Redwall, because it's made for children, I love that it's repetitive. I love that it hits the same structure and a lot of the same themes over and over and over again, because when you're a kid, that repetition it's desirable, it's valuable, it's helpful. And so, I don't mind that at all. But obviously, we don't want to do the entire Redwall series. So that would get to be a bit repetitive for us as a podcast. So maybe we'll do like 3 books. I'm thinking Mossflower, Redwall, and I can't remember which comes immediately after that, but maybe something like Salamandastron or something. So yeah, we'll do Redwall. A Wrinkle in Time. I think there are more books than just the one, but for that, I think we would just do the one. And then with Dragonflight, if we get to that one, I'd lean on you guys, but I think within the show, I'd lean on Todd to know like how far it's worth going. So if you have thoughts on that, let me know. Anyway, in the meantime, okay, there we go. Thanks to everybody, obviously, who's donated, but thanks to everybody who's here and who participated in the live stream. Really appreciate it. It's really fun to have you guys around for these. Earlier, if you're just joining us, earlier we talked about what makes a book preachy. I mean, obviously the dumbass thumbnail and the title, it tells you that. But you can go back. If you're just joining us, you can go back and watch the first part of that. And I think it's an interesting question. Hopefully you do too. Thanks everybody for chilling for a little while on this Thursday night. Hope you have an excellent weekend starting tomorrow. And I'll see you next time.